This happened just last night, so I wanted to recount it while the details were all still fresh in my head. Yesterday evening, I went to the cinema with a friend after work and was making my way home around 12 a.m. or so. In my neighborhood, there's a large park that separates the two sides of the estate, and it's a good shortcut for getting to the street where my house is. Now, before I go on, I should mention that I live in an extremely safe suburban town in the east of Ireland. I could probably tell you all the major crimes that have happened here in the past 20 years off the top of my head. It's known for being a place that is totally calm and very out of harm's way. I've walked through this park countless times after dark, sometimes as late as 3 a.m. after a night out with friends, and I've never come across anything weird or creepy, but that changed last night. The park is very big and mostly a wide open space. You can basically picture it as the perfect place for kids to play a game of football because there's not a lot of trees or bushes in the way. There's also no street lights or light sources. I was walking up the trail that runs along the border of the park, and as I got about halfway along, a big shape right in the middle of the open space got my attention. It was motionless, so at first I thought it was some sort of big goalpost or marker that the kids had left behind after playing, but then as I got closer, it began to move towards me, and I saw it was a person. The entire park was deserted except for the two of us, and I thought it was odd he'd been standing right in the middle of it, as most people just use the two trails on either side. It was difficult to see in the dark, but it looked like a tall man in a long coat with shaggy hair. I looked around for a dog to see if he was out late walking his pet, but I saw nothing. He was just slowly striding in my direction. I looked away from him and picked up my pace, telling myself not to be ridiculous. He was probably just crossing the park and only coincidentally was walking towards me. I glanced back at him and saw that when I had sped up, he changed his direction to follow me, still at the same slow pace. I looked away again and walked quicker, but glanced back a few seconds later to make sure he wasn't still following me. But he was. But then he stopped. He turned away from me and started motioning with his hands. Think about a traffic warden gesturing for a car to move forward. It looked like he was beckoning for something to come towards him. I broke into a light jog for the rest of the park, looking back a few times to make sure he hadn't suddenly started into a run after me. But no, he was still making that same signal right where I left him. I kept up a quick pace all the way to my road, hurried up the driveway to my house, and shuddered when I closed the door behind me. Even when I walked down through the park this morning on my way into town, I felt uncomfortable when I passed where he'd been. The experience left a bad taste in my mouth.